Hello again, it is I, Frieza700, and we are back with some lore for Warhammer 40K. This time we are going to talk about the origins of the Necrons. Now, I don't have many theories about this. In fact, this is going to be mostly me complaining about how the lore on these guys is pretty shoddy and has changed and been retconned a lot. But we're going to get into that.
After the...
So the Necrons. As you can tell by the pictures, they are robotic, but they were never always this way. So, here we go, back in time. We're not going to 30K, we're not going to 20K, we're not even going to 10K. We're going all the way back to Warhammer 60 million years ago. Before the Eldar, before the Orcs, before all this bullshit happened. So, the Necrons. They were originally known as the Necron tier, and the Necron tier basically looked the same. Now, they were kind of dealt a shitty hand by Mother Nature. So, they were on a world that was highly irradiated and caused unnaturally short lifespans. Just about everything on the planet was dead or dying from birth. Now, I don't mean like dead or dying as in, existence is to nothing but die. No, in their case, it was literal. Everything was so heavily mutated and heavily degraded by radiation from their star dying that their lifespans were cut extremely short. So we're talking 30 years at best, 50 years if you're really fucking lucky and stay out of the sun. But even then, your own natural genes from your ancestors is so degraded that even if you spend your whole life inside a irradiated proof fucking room, you would still die of a young age because of all that ancestral DNA degeneration. So the Necrons were dealt a really shit hand, and they actually learned to worship the dead. So they worship the dead in a way that's very unique. They worship the dead in the sense that when you die, your greatest achievement is what will define your spirit. So, they didn't really have a lot of wars on their planet due to just how short-lived everything was and how much they would all try to do the best they could for each other, so that way when they died, their spirit was much better than everyone else's. Kind of a little bit of pricks, aren't they? So, how did this work for them? Well, having a short lifespan actually made them technologically advanced really quickly. Because after all, if your planet is a problem and everyone's dying and everyone's trying to be better than everyone else so that way their spirit is fucking amazing, then everyone's going to turn to science and go, oh shit, if I discover rockets and I can get us into space away from the sun, my spirit is going to be the fucking god of my people. So they all rushed to this dream, and they rushed it. Sure enough, they discovered spaceflight technology, and they discovered how to travel through space. Now again, I really don't like this because 60 million years ago is a long time. And as I said, after the Necrons were over and the old ones left, the Eldar ruled the galaxy. And to say the Eldar ruled the galaxy for over 60 million years, I find that hard to believe. Especially since they were probably as smart or a little bit less smart than the Necrons. So the Necrons rushed their technological advancements. That's great for them. They're now finally off their fucking planet. They are colonizing at an astronomical scale. Well, here's a problem. They realized really quickly, too little, too late, you all have such terrible, terrible DNA that now you will die short lives no matter what planet you colonize for no matter what the duration. This pissed off a lot of people. But what really pissed off a lot of people was that now they're able to own these planets, but they still have to pay tribute to the council on their homeworld. The council who still stays on their homeworld. The council that in their eyes isn't making any progress. So, They made little dynasties on every single fucking planet, and some of them even had more than one planet at their disposal. And a huge civil war occurred. Now, the Triarch, which is the name of the council, which is 3 people who basically are kings of the Necrons, they realize that the only way for the Necrons to unite is if they all point their fingers at an outside threat. Well, there was only one alien species at this time that we know of. These were called the Old Ones. Now, the Old Ones are basically immortal. They discovered immortality. They were the first alien species. They would create life out of nothingness. They owned the warp. They had magnificent architectures in the warp. Supposedly, they were even able to go into alternate dimensions. Now, these people are very technologically advanced. The Necrons decided in their big smart brains, fuck those people. So they did that. They tried to fuck the Old Ones. They got a really big ass spanking from that, though. So the Necrons have really interesting technology, don't get me wrong. The fact that they are able to suck the life out of anything that their gun points at is pretty fascinating. That's a very deadly weapon against the Old Ones. Problem is that the Old Ones are immortal and you aren't. Your people are dying when they hit 30. The Old Ones are millions of years old. They've seen combat. They understand that even though they view all life as precious, they don't think that your individual life is precious, and they will gladly exterminate your ass. Now, the Old Ones couldn't really pull themselves to wipe out this pathetic species of Necrons, so they allowed them to live on their home planet. While they're on their home planet and they just suffered a humiliating fucking defeat to the Old Ones, another civil war occurred. Well, this time, they knew better not to point their finger at the Old Ones. They knew this time they're going to have to unite it the old-fashioned way, which is through a nice civil war. This civil war never ended. And turns out their deep hatred and anger towards the Old Ones, because the Old Ones weren't going to give them the key to immortality. The Old Ones didn't want to fix the Necrons' problems. Now, this was before their war. The Necrons actually asked the Old Ones before the war, hey, could you help us? You know, make us immortal like you guys, will join you. The Old Ones said no. Now, as to why they said no, we don't really understand. Because on one source, GW says they value all life. But on another source, they say, fuck you, Necrons. Your society isn't warlike, and your society does value death, but we're not going to help you out. So this is going to cause more war and more death later on. Good fucking writing, right? But who cares? This is all mythology, basically. So, the Necrons, being back on their home planet, kind of fucked. They're realizing that, you know, maybe the sun is gonna kind of explode. Because now when they look at their sun, they notice something's a little odd. Their sun is kind of dying at a faster rate. So before, their sun was dying. It's an old star. Great, we're all being irradiated. Let's get off this planet and fucking survive. Now they're on their planet and they're going, the planet's dying a little too quickly. It's kind of like as if the planet is about to suffer a heart attack. Why is our sun dying so quickly? They look at it, and there they see it. They see what they call the Catan. And the Catan are going to have their own lore video later on. But the Catan are basically the first beings that ever existed. We're talking before the Old Ones, the Catan existed. And the Catan aren't organic. They're not really made of anything material. They're actually just energy. So in that sense, you cannot kill a Catan, because it's just energy with sentience. So now you got this ball of fucking energy that is constantly burning its energy, and it has to constantly replenish it. But now you give it intelligence. Oh boy. It doesn't really give a fuck about you squishies. also known as organics. And it really doesn't care to understand organics. So, the old ones believe all life is sacred. The Catan believe all life is to be digested into essence, into energy. They had their own war before the Necrons, and somehow the Catan almost got wiped out by the old ones, which again, lore conflicts again. Because later on in another codex, it says that the Catan fight alongside the Necrons, and then Catan started to die off at that point. But another lore piece says that there was only 3 Catan left when they met the Necrons. So you can see why, as a guy who's giving you lore, why I'm going on and on and on about these Catan, is that the Catan, we don't really know how many of them were around. I'm going to stick to my interpretation of it, which is that there's only 3. Because, again, the war with the old ones was before, and it would make sense that the old ones would kind of annihilate them. Well, the Catan come to the Necrons after feeling all this anger on this planet. And this Catan, known as the Deceiver, kind of notices that their star is a little bit delicious. And he decides to dine on their star. He doesn't really understand that these Necrons here are actually looking up to him as a star god, which is what Catan means. In another translation of the Necron language, Catan also means vampire star. So take your pick. Either the Necrons looked up to him as a god, or they looked up to him and said, "Get the fuck off of our sun, asshole, you're killing us faster." Either way, however you interpret this, is up to you. But somehow the Necrons here, within like a few fucking days, found out how to talk to this parasite on their fucking sun. And they asked it a few questions, and they realized this thing hates the old ones. Not only does it hate the old ones, it pretty much doesn't like anything that's alive. The Necrons have a way of using this guy. So they built something out of necrodermis. And necrodermis is a type of self-regenerating metal. It's tough, like adamantium, but it self-rejuvenates some fucking how. That's awesome. You could literally blow it to pieces, and it will somehow reattach itself and repair itself and actually grow itself back into place. That's awesome. It can be permanently destroyed. That is a possibility. If you like absolutely blow it up inside a planet, it could definitely be gone for good. But besides that, it's pretty tough shit. Well, they make a giant dragon out of necrodermis. Well, the old one, the Catan, known as the Deceiver, realizes that somehow he's able to transmit his energy into this necrodermis husk. And he inhabits it. Now this is fucking new. He's been around since the dawn of time. And now he's actually got a fucking body. This is amazing. There's a problem though. Now that he's trapped inside this necrodermis, he is not able to eat suns. But now he's got a different craving. Now instead of wanting to eat the fucking sun, now he wants to eat the Necrons. So he decides to go on a little bit of a snacking spree and decides to become a bit of a foodie of the Necron tier and just devours a shit ton of Necrons. That's great. That's what the Necrons really needed at this point in time, was a fucking giant dragon eating their people. That's great. So, the Necrons made a deal with them. Give them the power that they need to defeat the old ones, and they won't bitch about being eaten by this fucking thing. Well, the Deceiver had his own plans. He put up these giant foundries, and every Necron went in it. Every single fucking Necron went in it. Supposedly billions. I don't know about that. Billions sounds way too big to me. But somehow there were billions and billions and billions and billions of people, like hundreds of billions of people on this one fucking tiny death planet. And they all got turned to Necrons, what you see now. Well, they kind of realized it really quickly that by agreeing to work with the Catans, they gave away their soul. but their bodies were made of necrodermis. So now they're kind of impervious to the warp in some way, shape, or form, because now their minds cannot be attacked. Now they're just automatons. They're just fucking husk. This is great. And they actually came back to the old ones and said, huh.
Hey old ones, did you forget me?
And proceed to butcher the fucking old ones. Supposedly on one source, this actually led to their extinction of the old ones. On another source, it led to a bloody conflict for sure, but the old ones are still alive. You take your pick on which one. The lore kind of changes a lot with these guys. Now, the old ones couldn't face these guys, and they realized that if they're going to face the Necrons, they're going to need alien species to be cultivated specifically to fight them in their own way, shape, and form. So they made the Krorks and the Eldar. They made a few other minor races, but I don't care to go into those. So the Eldar are really good because they're fast. Necrons are slow. Dead fucking slow. How slow? Fucking slow. They're really slow. Eldar are really fast. And Eldar are psychically powerful. That helps a lot. Then you got the Orcs, or the Krorks as they called them. We don't really know too much about the Krorks, we just know they're possible ancestors of the Orcs. And if they work the same as the Orcs, then we can understand how they were so fucking effective against the Necrons. Problem is that the Necrons would literally sap life out of a world. And then they would give that energy to the Catan to feed it. So that way he could stop munching on people. That's awesome. Well, the Orcs and the Eldar kicked the Necrons' asses all the way back to home. And they're fucking a kind of epiphany. So they were gonna lose. That's awesome. But now they're starting to realize something else. In all of this hatred and all this emotion riving through the galaxy, they kind of created a bit of a demon epidemic. So, in the warp is a mirror of reality. Well, the old ones and the Necrons were afraid of something known as enslavement. They were afraid of being enslaved by the other faction. Well, in all of this turmoil, this boiled over in the warp and created the first demon incurrence we've ever seen. They're still around, mind you. They're actually still a thing. They're still a problem. They're known as the Enslavers. And they're basically a bunch of parasitic, semi-warp creatures that just came flooding out of the warp and started enslaving living organics. This is a problem. This is a problem. So, the Necrons said, fuck this shit, betray the Catan. So that's what they did, they betrayed the Catan. And they put the Catan inside these little dimensional prisons, which is really cool. That's awesome. So now the Catan are their bitches, so now they have the power of gods at their disposal. And the king of all the Necrons, who basically held them with an iron fist because he controlled all the robots, he told them to go into their stasis tombs and slumber for millions of years till they're called upon or awakened. Cool. They all scattered, they all rested, great. The Tomb King himself, though, didn't rest. He decided to roam the galaxy. Now, every other race got fucked by these enslavers, but as quick as the enslavers came, was as quick as they disappeared. Once all that they thought was organic was taken over, and all that fear was gone because the old ones ran away or went extinct, depending which lore you look into, the enslavers just disappeared. They're demons for sure, but they're old, and they've been around for a long time. Most of the enslavers are gone. As to how, some people speculate that they went way into the warp, and by warp I mean like they went in the other side of the universe. Another piece of lore says that they just naturally died out the way a demon would. since there's no emotions feeding it, they're gonna die out. But because people are naturally afraid of being dominated and enslaved today in 40K, then it makes sense that enslavers are still around. Hence the video game Warhammer 40K Gladius, there are still a few enslavers running around. They're just very rare. And usually a psyker brings them to them. Because, again, psykers are very powerful people. So the Necrons are now in a slumber. And that leads us to today. Why are the Necrons waking after 60 million years? What are the Necrons planning to do? How are the Necrons expected to do anything? The galaxy is totally different. 60 million years. Fuck. 10,000 years ago, the galaxy looked totally different. Fuck, 60 million years. 60 million years, the galaxy won't even be the same galaxy. And that's kind of the pickle the Necrons are in right now, especially since their king is gone. And he destroyed the button that binded all the wills of the automatons to him. So now every Necron has their own personality again. But they do not experience emotion. So they have their own personalities, yes, but they don't display emotion. And now dynasties are starting to become a thing again. They don't really know what to do though. On one side, they don't know if they're the only Necrons left. On another side, they think that all the Necrons are doing what they're doing, which is massacring every fucking organic that they come across. Some Necron dynasties are just saying, you know what? Let bygones be bygones. We're just going to keep to ourselves. And that's kind of the pickle the Necrons are in right now. But again, we'll get into the lore of it next video, because Michael Barney deserves this reward. So in the next video, we're going to talk about what the Necrons are doing as of now, what it is that they are planning to do, and really more or less what their situation is in depth. Now, as far as the video goes, I'm kind of sorry guys if there's a lot of ranting. Just know this is very old lore. So we're talking about mythology. We're talking about stuff that no one can really say for certain except for GW. And they've retconned this lore so many fucking times that I don't care to go into too specific details about it. If you want really good specific details, I would recommend you watch Arch Warhammer on Necrons, because he did a really in-depth 40-minute, hour-long video on this. Me, I don't care to go that too in-depth with it because of this one big fact. The Necrons are very shoddy with their lore, and something that happened 60 million years ago doesn't really hold any significance today. And again, the lore is so badly written that I have a very hard time saying that the Eldar somehow had awesome technology 60 million years ago and then stayed at that technological level for 60 million years and didn't really advance that much. Like, that's really hard to fucking imagine. A species that's way smarter than a human. Humans technologically advanced quickly in the span of 100 years. So don't tell me that Eldar, who are smarter than humans, were technologically stagnant for 60 million years. So that's why I don't really like this lore too much. But the Necrons are an awesome faction to really get into. So, besides that, I hope you guys like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you guys next time. See ya later. Frieza 700, I'm out.